I'm going to come down a little bit because of the lights this morning. I don't want to be up there in the dark by myself. Oh, thanks, Matt. Oops, sorry. We're going to go back one. So this morning we're going to, let me go back again. For those of you who have not met me before, my name's Mikey, and I'm going to just take us through a little bit of what we've just read there. Oh, the lights. Way, amazing. We're going to go through Mark's story a little bit. So 3 things we're going to look at. One is, how did Jesus engage in communities? I think that's important for all of us. How did he transform the congregation, which is, for all intents and purposes, us, here, there, here, there. And what does he mean by when he calls individuals? And what does that mean for us? So what would you think? Would you think I was arrogant if I said in the next 60 seconds I was going to introduce you to Jesus? Or would you think I was deluded? Come on, somebody must have an opinion on this. Go on then. Right, there we are, Shola. Here's Jesus. You can have a Jesus in your life. Here's a little Jesus in your life. There we go. You don't want a Jesus. She doesn't want Jesus in her life. She wants the real Jesus. Would anybody like a Jesus in their life? Okay. Could I have a volunteer that could give the Jesuses out? You look like a volunteer, a willing volunteer. You could volunteer for this. Put your hands up. These are Jesuses. Yeah, they're real Jesuses. They're real Jesuses. I've got 50 of them, so you better take them.
Oh, they're not sweet?
They're not sweet. Oh, come on. Come on. All right, Karen, have a Jesus. They're not sweet. Goodness me. Come on then, Clive. Right, can I have a volunteer to give the Jesuses out to anybody who would like a Jesus? Right, thanks, Karen. Go on then. Okay. Now, the reason for these is our daughter Grace helps lead the Christian Union at sixth form, and they asked people, would you like a little Jesus in your life? And the reaction was quite strong. Most people are like, whoa. And then they got these out. And the conversations that took place as a result of that were phenomenal. And the Christian Union has grown. So we have the jar of risk at the front. So if you take a Jesus, I would encourage you, don't hold on to him. Use him as a little conversation starter this week with somebody that you meet, somebody that you're praying for. I'll give this one to Richard, because Richard was hoping I wouldn't. There we go. So there's a little Jesus in your life this week. And if there are 50 of those, if 50 of us went out and had conversations this week with individuals and said, would you like a little Jesus in your life, and use that as a starter of a conversation, what would that week look like? What would that week feel like? We're doing that almost as a little bit of fun, and I'm sorry that they're not chocolates or, next time I'll learn. Okay. But this is what Jesus did. He engaged in communities where they were, with people where they were, not where they wanted to be. And it got me thinking this morning, if I was guaranteed that I could meet Jesus, what circumstances would I want that to be? And I would probably want to be when I was at my best, not when I was at my lowest or at my worst. But it says that Jesus, he engaged in communities, and he went amongst the congregations, the synagogue, and he met people exactly where they were, usually at the worst point in their lives. And it says he taught with authority. And we've probably all heard this, where you talk to people about your faith, and you get a typical response, which is, oh, no thank you. Christians are ... Church is ... I don't believe in God because of ... Okay? And so there was a survey conducted. I was talking to Ava about this after the service. Ava is from Texas, and we were talking about this. And so there was a survey conducted last year in the United States, and they surveyed 7,000 people, which is a huge population, statistically speaking. Anybody that's done statistics will tell you that 7,000 is a high probability, certainly in excess of 95%. And they asked a question: why have 40 million adults and children left American churches in the last 25 years? Big question. And the answers they got surprised me and surprised a lot of people. So we're going to open it up. Matt knows the answers to these, so Matt is banned. But any ideas what you might think the top 5 reasons are why 40 million people turned off God? Shout them out. Don't believe in God anymore. Bad things happening, yeah. Falling out with people. Oh, come to church and fall out with people. They'll drive you crazy, yeah. Finding other things to do. Thank you, John. Yeah. What about church is boring? Church is boring. The people, bad coffee, yeah. Okay, not on that one. Thank you, Rob. Thank you. I was thinking when I saw it, I thought it's going to be things like, I don't want to go to church because the people in there will judge me. The church will be cold, the building will be horrible, the music will be awful, and the speaker will be, well, just yuck. Hopefully not. Those were the things I was thinking of, but they were not the reasons that were given. So the top 5 reasons. Number 5, church isn't progressive enough. It's not keeping up with the times and social trends. Or people responded and said, it's too progressive. It's changed too much. Number 4, I'm sorry, there are other priorities for my time or my money on a Sunday. Number 3, sorry, we've had a big family change. There has either been a family split, there's been a marriage or a remarriage. Our family can't do that at the moment. Number 2, this really shocked me. Sorry, can't get out on a morning, inconvenient times to meet. And I thought, is that really true? And then I thought, yeah, it is, because on a Sunday morning in our village, most of the dads are with their kids at the football pitch at 10 o'clock, playing Little League. So church meeting times are not where the people are. And finally, number 1, we simply relocated and lost contact with the church family. Not what I was expecting. I was expecting hostility towards God, a bad experience in church, but not at all. And so we contrast this with this. So this is a survey that was done earlier this year, in April of this year, by the Bible Society for the United Kingdom, and it was carried out by YouGov, so it was totally independent, and they wanted to understand, is there any truth in the rumour that the church in the UK is growing? Because if you listen to the mainstream press, you would think the churches were empty. No. So here we are. So these are some of the articles. So The Spectator, The Independent, The Guardian, The Times, BBC, ITV. I could have filled the screen with articles there. And what they found is when they commissioned this survey, as it says there, a revival is happening. A quiet revival is happening in the UK. And it hasn't been organised as a result of Louis Palou or anybody like that coming. It's just a whole generation is turning back to God. And so these are the findings, or some of the key findings from that survey. Most church growth up and down the UK is between young adults aged 18 to 24. In 2018, just pre-pandemic, only 4% of 18 to 24-year-olds attended church. That number now, 21%. Incredible. More young men than women are attending church for the first time in recorded history, which is incredible. And so I was telling the 9 o'clock service, Grace and I were up in St. Thomas's in Newcastle, and I asked their vicar about that, and he said, that's true. That's what they're seeing in Newcastle. So a year ago, there were 2 young men aged 18 to 30 in the church. There are now 31. And he said the 2 that started out, they just came in off the street. They were not church, they were more likely to be in the big market on a Friday night. They were not regular church people. They've become fearless evangelists. And so their attitude now in Newcastle, whenever they see a young man aged 18 to 30 on the streets, they will walk up to him on purpose and say, do you want to know Jesus? It surprised me. It wasn't what I was expecting to hear at all. Nearly 70% of those attending, aged 18 to 24, they said now that they regularly read their Bible outside of services, which is fantastic. And they're more likely to volunteer in the communities and give. So that has a social impact as well. So the co-author of the report has got a very posh name, Dr. Barwood Simmons. I'll paraphrase what he said. So the press asked him and said, why is this taking place? And this is, to paraphrase, a very long response. And he said, there is a deep search for meaning in the context of a mental health crisis, post-COVID. There is an epidemic of loneliness in the UK. There is a lack of purpose and fulfillment in a generation that feels that the system has failed them and they have nothing to turn to. That rings true, doesn't it? I've got friends that work in mental health, and they said there is an epidemic of mental health, particularly, surprisingly, in the NHS. The people that cared for the country in COVID, they are the ones now that are struggling the most. That rings true with us. So we go back to Jesus. He's in the synagogue, and the synagogue was their place of worship, their equivalent of what we're looking at this morning. And they would just mainly focus on the first 5 books of the Bible that were given to God, to Moses. Ten Commandments, which we're all familiar with, but by the time we get to Jesus' time, the Ten Commandments, because men got involved, have grown. There's now 613 of those commandments. And so it was all about the rabbis and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, who were the religious leaders. They cared more about obeying laws and rules than a relationship with God. And Jesus is coming along into the middle of this, and he's doing something unheard of. So these are the three elements of that we looked at this morning in the Bible. So the first is the man that there was struggling with, the Bible calls it demon possession. There was an evil influence over his life. And it doesn't have to be as severe as that. There are lots of things in our lives that can control us. Habits and attitudes, I would say, are probably the most prevalent today. The second one is Simon Peter's mum. And then the third one there on the right is the leper. And that's the one, I'm hoping this is going to work. So we'll just...
To spoil this beautiful day or anything, huh? Come on. Mr. Leper, stay back.
Cover your mouth. Don't bring his head out. Come any closer.
It's okay, John. It's okay.
Rabbi, to handle this disease, you...
Please. Please. Please don't turn away from me. I won't. Lord, if you are willing, if you can make me clean, only if you want to, I submit to you. My sister, she was a servant at the wedding. She told me what you could do. I know you can heal me if you are willing. I am willing. Be cleansed. Thank you. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. What can I ever do? Do not say anything to anyone. You don't seek your own honor? Please just do me this one thing. But what do I tell people? Go. Show yourself to the priest. Let them inspect you and see that you are cleansed. Make the proper offering in the temple as Moses commanded. And go on your way.
What's an extra tunic? Just one of you, just one of you. That's enough. Green is definitely your color. Not too shabby.
Don't know what your response to seeing that is. I've watched that quite a few times now, and I sent in 9 o'clock service. Every time I watch that, I end up with a tear in my eye. You read the words in Mark's gospel, it's not the same as watching it, is it? It just touches something in us. And that man, as soon as he had leprosy, he would have lost everything: his life, his future, his family, his work, every relationship he'd ever known. The only people he would be able to spend any time with with other lepers. And Pam said to me after the service, we don't come to Jesus as we'd like. We come to Jesus the way that we are. And it's true, and he accepts us, and he sorts us out. For each of us, that will be a unique and a different experience. But he does that. And so, having said that, I shared with the life group what questions might arise from understanding that. And so they gave me 3 tough questions I shouldn't have asked. So these are the questions. So it's a bit like, who wants to be a millionaire? So these are the questions they asked me that comes out of Mark's story. Number 1, how come Jesus is so powerful to do these amazing things? Well, that's a really good question, I think. Number 2, why did he tell the leper not to say who he was? It's a perfectly legitimate question. And number 3, if Jesus is so powerful and heal people, why doesn't he heal people today? So the first 2 I will cover, and the third I'll hand to Matt. No, I'll have a go at the third one as well. So here we go. Let's have a look, see if we can do this. So we have questions when we read the Bible, and those questions are perfectly legitimate. So where does his power and authority come from? The Bible tells us that in Matthew and also the book of Acts. In Matthew it says, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me by his Father in heaven. And in the book of Acts it says, God anointed Jesus with the Holy Spirit and with power. It wasn't of himself, it came from God the Father. In terms of the silence, why did he ask him to be silent? And it almost clue comes from the leper, where he says, you're not seeking your own honor. And he wasn't. Jesus was not trying to promote a name for himself. He also told the leper there to go and follow the Jewish laws, which was go, present yourself to the priest, and the priest will certify you clean, and then you can go back to your community. So even though Jesus was turning everything on his head, he was still respecting the laws, even which men had made on there. And the other part of that is he wanted to move around freely. He wanted other people to know what he was going to do for them. And with that publicity, it meant that he wasn't able to travel. And the third one, the biggest one that arises from this, the question of miracles, it's a tough one. And I don't have a perfect answer for you, but I'll give you my answer, and I know that we can discuss that later. So healing is a mystery. I have seen people in church be healed. And I shared at the 9 o'clock service when I was probably about 13 or 14. I was in a church service, our old church. And the lady that lived next door to the church had never been in. She'd lived there 30, 40 years, never been in. And she walked with 2 sticks, and she was literally bent over. And she came into the church for the first time. A very dear old man, late 80s, was called Pat, who was like a spiritual granddad to me, and he prayed for her quietly, and there was an audible crack. And she stood up for the first time. And then she threw her sticks down, she ran up and down the church, and then she went out of the church, and she never came back. It's a mystery. And Pat had prayed for other people in the church and for other situations and never saw anything happen. Why did God choose to heal that lady who wasn't coming back into church and not other people? I don't know. It's an imperfect world that we live in, but I trust God that he knows. And I know that in the last year, even in this church, we've seen answers to prayer and miracles. So it doesn't stop me believing that God can and he will. And I think God calls us to do the things that we can do, and everything else he will do. And we have to leave some of those bigger questions with him and trust that his grace is sufficient for us. I love this quote here from Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He said, "We may be surprised at the people we find in heaven. God has got a soft spot for sinners. His standards are quite low." I love that. If you want to brighten your day up, look for quotes from Desmond Tutu. There are some amazing ones out there. And he wants us to know this morning, as we think about being among communities, about a congregation that is transformed, about lives that are touched. He wants you to know this morning that you are blessed, you're forgiven, you're valued, you're loved. You know, that's a most basic need, isn't it? Some of us, when we were at school, we learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It sounds very posh. But the most basic human need is to want to be loved, to be valued, to be heard, to be seen. And that seems almost impossible in a world of social media where, everything's driven by likes. Jesus didn't set out to be liked. He set out to bring God's love into the world, and he made as many enemies as he did friends. And so this morning I want you to know, no matter what you're facing, no matter whether or not you're like that leper, which is you just think, I've got no hope in this particular situation, like the man who had the evil spirit and something was controlling him, there was a situation that he couldn't break through, or that congregation which was just struggling, trying to find some connection to God. He wants you to know this morning that he loves you and he will meet you exactly where you are. So I think there'll be an opportunity for prayer later on, which we certainly want. And so I'll be around, Matt will be around, others will be around if anything that we've said this morning has touched you. But I would encourage you, those little Jesuses, let them serve as a reminder of how much he loves you. And if you can share them with somebody in this week, it would be fantastic next week to come and not have all of those Jesuses with us and find that they've actually been a blessing to other people. Thank you.